if I may.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Good morning. Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
My name's Dr. Andrew Caparo, last name Capraro.
And your date of birth, please?
July 9th, 1970.
What do you do for a living?
I'm an attending physician in the emergency department at Boston Children's Hospital
And how long have you done that?
for the last 26 years.
Can you just briefly describe for us the training and education you had to qualify for that role?
I went to Providence College undergrad and then went to Brown Medical School. Subsequently, I went to Connecticut Children's Medical Center for my pediatric residency and then did fellowship training in pediatric emergency medicine at Boston Children's Hospital from 2000 to 2003 and have been an attending there ever since.
And what's involved with being an attending at Boston Children's Hospital?
It means that I am guiding the care and treatment for the patients that I am seeing during my particular shift.
And are you assigned to a specific location or area of the hospital?
I'm always in the emergency department, and the emergency department is broken up into different zones, of which I am sort of the primary attending for one set of rooms.
I want to direct your attention to January 24th, 2023. Were you working that evening?
I was.
And at some point in time, did you learn that a patient named Callan Clancy was going to be transported to your hospital?
I did.
And do you recall where he was being brought from?
From Beth Israel, Plymouth, I believe.
And was he being med-flighted to your facility?
Correct.
And were you provided with some information about the patient in order to prepare for his arrival?
I was.
And what did you learn?
We have a communication center where facilities that are transferring patients to us call to let us know that the patient is coming. And so that comm center had been notified about this patient, who then got in touch with me as the attending who would be caring for the patient to let me know what had happened there and the condition of the patient when he was arriving.
And what did you learn about the condition of the patient, Callan Clancy, as he was being flown to your hospital?
What I was told was that it was believed that the patient had been strangled, and when he arrived at Plymouth, he was in cardiac arrest, that they had intubated him and initiated CPR, and they had gotten return of spontaneous circulation, and that they were then going to transfer him to us for further evaluation and care.
And at some point in time, did Callan arrive at your hospital?
That is correct.
And were you able to observe him physically?
Yes.
What observations did you make about his physical condition?
He was cold on arrival, and he was quite limp, was not making any purposeful movements on his own. His pupils were fixed and dilated, and he had ligature marks about his neck with some swelling of the neck.
And his pupils being fixed and dilated, is that medically significant for you?
Yes, it is.
And why is that?
It typically means that significant injury has happened to the brain, such that there is brain swelling that has sort of It has overwhelmed the capacity of the skull, such that the swelling has made the brain sort of herniate through the base of the skull.
Does that mean the brain's swelling so much it's pushing through the skull?
Correct.
And what observations did you make of his heart rate?
His heart was beating, and we did have to provide him with an epinephrine drip to keep his heart rate and his blood pressure within normal limits, but it was beating on its own.
And how did you know that you had to provide the epinephrine for him to stabilize that heart rate?
It was initiated at BI because they had noticed that his blood pressure was low, and you need to have normal blood pressure for the blood to perfuse your organs and keep them healthy. And so we were looking for certain parameters to sort of maintain that, which we did on that epinephrine drip.
And when you say BI, you're referring to Beth Israel?
Yes, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. And so as far as his breathing, how was he breathing on his own?
He had been intubated at the outside hospital, and he was needing a ventilator to breathe for him. Occasionally, he would have sort of a breath on his own, we would notice. We were able to see that because when he attempted to take a breath on his own, he would trigger the ventilator to continue that breath. But it was rare. For sure, he needed the ventilator to maintain his ventilation.
Would it be fair to say that the majority of his breathing was being done by the ventilator?
Yes, the vast majority of his breathing.
Now, once you have received this information while he's coming in, and then you've made your own physical observations of Callan, are there certain tests that you have run on him?
Yeah, our job, once we received him, was to perform further evaluation and stabilization to help determine what the next steps of his medical care would be. So prior to him arriving, we had contacted our trauma team and our ICU doctors to let them know that he was coming and that we would need their assistance. And then under my care, we performed some routine blood work, so a head CT, a neck CT, and a chest X-ray to sort of help us guide the next steps.
And from the head CT and the other testing that you did, what were you able to learn from the results of those tests?
The head CT in particular showed significant brain swelling consistent with hypoxic ischemic injury, which was most likely, or which was the most significant finding that we found.
So could you please explain for us what is hypoxic ischemic injury?
Hypoxic is just a fancy word for not getting enough oxygen, and ischemic is just a fancy word for not getting enough blood flow. And so when your organs don't get enough oxygen and blood, they sort of suffer injury and therefore get to swelling. And so his brain was showing evidence of that.
So would it be fair to say that his brain wasn't getting enough oxygen and blood flow, and then because of that, it was damaged and swelling?
Correct.
Now, this type of swelling and injury, as you're describing it, can that be caused by strangulation, the injury of the brain?
Most certainly.
And you mentioned earlier that you did see some marks around his neck. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what were those consistent with?
Strangulation of some sort, most likely from an object, based upon the linear aspect of the bruising.
And when you say the linear aspect of the bruising, does that mean it's in a straight line?
Correct.
Now, once you had the results of this testing, was there, did you make a decision on what to do next?
Yeah, you know, the main thing was to help us figure out, did the patient need to go to the operating room for some sort of other procedure to help with this, or was this something that could be dealt with medically? And so once we had the results of the head CT and then the neck CT as well, it was felt that the next appropriate step in his medical care would be to be transitioned to the intensive care unit for them to take over care.
Why was it that surgery was not an option to help Callan in this situation?
Yeah, you know, the neurosurgery doctors were there to sort of help us make that decision. There was no significant bleeding, for example, that would need to be evacuated. There was nothing that they felt from a surgical point of view would help alleviate the problems that we saw in the CT.
Okay. And so was his care transferred to the ICU?
That is correct.
And once Callan was transferred to the intensive care unit, did your care for him end at that point?
Correct.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reddington?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Please step down.
Thank you.
Commonwealth calls Dr. David Cassavant.
All right, good morning, Doctor.
Good morning. Morning, Honor.
Treat Sprague.
Thank you. Good morning. Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Surely. My first name is David. My last name is Cassavant. It's spelled C-A-S-A-V-A-N-T.
And your date of birth, sir?
5263.
What do you do for a living?
I'm an ICU physician at Boston Children's Hospital.
Can you briefly describe for us your educational and training background?
Sure. I went to college out at Holy Cross in Worcester and then to medical school at Boston University. I did my initial pediatric residency at Mass General Hospital and then went back and did a fellowship in ICU medicine at that hospital as well.
And where do you currently work?
I currently work at Boston Children's Hospital in the medical surgical ICU.
And how long have you worked at Boston Children's Hospital?
18 years.
And have you always worked in the ICU there?
Yes.
I want to direct your attention to January 26, 2023. At that point in time, did you take over the care of a patient named Callan Clancy?
I did.
And prior to taking over the care of Callan Clancy, did you do anything to familiarize yourself with his treatment and care?
Yes, I did. One of my colleagues had taken care of him the day before in the ICU, and I spoke with her, and so I was familiar with his case.
Okay. And did you also review reports and testing that had been performed while he was at the hospital?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And after reviewing the reports and the test results and speaking to your colleague, can you tell us what you learned from all of that?
Well, it seemed that Callan had a severe neurologic injury based on both testing and the examination that I did at the time.
And when you say a neurologic injury, is that a brain injury?
It's a brain injury, yes it is, yeah.
And did you review specifically a head CT scan of Callan?
Yes, I did.
And what did the head CT scan show you or tell you about his condition?
Well, the head CT is a picture of the brain, which was done in the emergency room when he was admitted to Boston Children's Hospital, and the CT scan showed an enormous amount of swelling of the brain itself. And
that the swelling of the brain, is that medically significant?
Very much so. When you have an injury to the brain that is caused by anoxia, which means a lack of oxygen, I describe this with families that the injury is very much like being out in the sun. You don't notice it at the time, but swelling occurs over the course of time. And one of the things with a lack of oxygen to the brain is the injury occurs and then swelling starts to happen over the course of time, typically peaking at 48 to 72 hours. When you see swelling that happens that early in a case, as in Callan's, it means that there's been a very significant lack of oxygen and therefore injury to the brain itself.
So, for example, some types of injuries that would withhold oxygen from the brain would be more mild and the swelling would occur over time. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct, yes.
So if a severe injury happens that withholds oxygen from the brain, that's when you see that immediate swelling like Callan had?
Very much so. Sort of the comparison of a sunburn to a burn that you might get from a stove. This was a stove. It's very, very profound.
Did you perform a physical examination of Callan?
I did.
And what did you observe?
Well, one of the first things that I noticed as I approached him was that he had a breathing tube in place, and I knew from my colleague that he was not on any sedation, which is very difficult to tolerate, having a breathing tube through the vocal cords if you're not sedated, and he was not sedated at the time. The next thing is that when I approach a patient in their bed in the ICU, we always start with a quick introduction that we're going to be coming near them in case they're asleep. And I usually start with something along the lines of, I'm Dr. Dave, I'm just going to listen to your heart. And I'd usually address them by name and to see if they start to respond. And then I'll go ahead with the rest of the exam, but that's just to sort of warn them that someone might be touching them. And then I'll listen to heart, lungs, and then to move forward to see if how responsive they are. So if you get no response at all from the initial, just using your voice, the next thing is and then from the exam, if they don't move around, then you start to sort of think, well, let's see how responsive they are. And so the next thing is sort of a gentle touch off into the bottom of the foot to see you stroke the bottom of the foot and you see if they pull away. And then you can move, if you get no response from that, we'll do something that's a little bit more noxious or painful, where you can sort of pinch a little bit of skin to see if they start to react, or pushing on the fingernail and the nail bed pressure, which is actually very noxious. And if you can see two types or several types of response, either no response, or you can see a very specific response where they pull away from that area. And that's a specific, or you can see generalized response, which are all sort of graded, graded along those that as we're sort of getting a sense for what their level of consciousness was.
So if I could go over a few of those things that you just mentioned.
Sorry.
You said that that the first thing that you noticed that was significant was that Callan had the breathing tube in place through the vocal cords without any sedation. So without sedation, would having a breathing tube in that place cause pain?
Yes. No one would be able to tolerate it.
And so Callan was able to tolerate it without any sedation.
Yes.
Would that indicate he wasn't feeling that pain at that time?
Yes, exactly.
And you mentioned that you would address the patient by name and talk to them. Was there any reaction from Callan when you did that?
No, there was not.
And then you mentioned you would rub maybe something along the foot. Was there any reaction?
No, there was not.
And did you do what you described in pinching the fingernail or pinching somewhere on Callan to see if he responded?
Yes.
And did he respond?
No, he did not.
And what did these interactions and tests on Callan tell you about his condition?
This told me that he was unresponsive. He was unresponsive to both things that would cause discomfort and things that would cause pain.
Did you also do anything in terms of looking at his pupils and any tests on his eyes?
Yes. So after all the other things that we look at the pupils, and so one of the things is we have it's a reflex response. If a light is shown in an eye, the pupil constricts. And what I noted about Callan was that his pupils stayed widely open and did not constrict.
And when someone's pupils stay open and wide when you shine a light in them, what does that indicate medically?
Well, the eyes are a direct extension of the brain, so that's why we focus a lot on them as an area of investigation. And the lack of a response to light indicates that there's some abnormality to that, and in this case, it was a brain injury. There's medications that can keep your eyes open if you've ever had an eye exam, but that was not the case with Callan.
And just to be clear, when you're talking about brain injury, we're not talking about some type of trauma that was inflicted on the brain. You're talking about the lack of oxygen and blood flow causing an injury to the brain, correct?
That's exactly correct, yes.
At that point in time, did you work with another doctor to do more in-depth testing regarding his neurological status?
Yes. So at Children's, we have multiple teams that come together for a patient, for many patients. But for Callan, the neurology team was there from the beginning. And when in a case like this, when we see no response in an unresponsive patient, we start to get our neurology team, and one of the things we start to do is brain death testing to see if they could be what we call brain dead, meaning that the brain itself is not functioning, and that even though their heart is still beating.
How is it that someone's heart can be beating if their brain is dead?
It's a really good question. So there's actually two parts to the nervous system. The one is the part that we see the most in people when they react, and they react to us, and they speak, and they do things. The other one is the autonomic or automatic system, and the automatic system is largely in charge of the things like the heart, if the heart has not been injured, and so it was sort of continuing on.
And does that give you any indication, the fact that the heart was still continuing on, about where the injuries were in the brain?
Yes, it does actually. Yeah,
Where would that be?
Yeah, so the large part of the brain that we sort of think of as when we see the pictures of the brain, that's the cerebellum, and that's the biggest thing in humans that is most developed, and that's in charge of our consciousness, our reaction to things, whereas the brain stem, which is another part, and that's really part of the autonomic system, and that's the same in almost all vertebrates and mammals, and it's much more automatic, and so it tells me that it seemed the cerebellum, which is that part that makes us sort of the human side of what we do, that's much more sensitive to a lack of oxygen, to an anoxic injury. And it told me that that was really where that injury was in that part of the brain, much less so in the brain stem itself.
So would it be fair to say that the brain stem itself that controls those automatic responses was still functioning somewhat, but the part of the brain that made Callan was not functioning?
That's exactly correct, yeah.
And can you describe for us the brain death testing?
Sure. So the brain death testing at Boston Children's it's a very strict testing that includes some of the things that I just mentioned, but we work with our, there's a checklist that we work on with our neurologic colleagues. And we sort of go through each of what we would expect for responses from someone. And we actually then work through different of the nerve sets that we would expect them to respond to. We have it set up so that there's an ICU physician is there, and then a neurologist is there, and the neurologist and the neurology team, they're the ones who perform the brain death testing. And then the test is then repeated again 24 hours later, just to make sure that there's no piece of that is different or incongruous with a diagnosis of brain death.
And while the neurologist is doing this testing, are you there present, watching the testing and seeing the results as it happens?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're sort of committed to being there for the whole time. And the brain death testing itself goes through some really basic things. Again, as I described earlier, the things that would be painful and do they pull away or not. The eyes, looking at the reflexes of the eyes. There's also other reflexes too. Things like if you stroke the cornea, which is the front of the eye, people blink, and that's so the blink reflex, cough, gag. There's also a reflex where they actually put cold water into an ear, and that gives people a disequilibrium. And so those are all the things that we think about. And then also there's some breathing components to that as well.
Is one of those breathing components an apnea test?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And what is an apnea test?
So apnea is a word that just describes describes a lack of breathing.
And how do you test that?
So in a patient such as Callan, what we do, and in any patient when we're doing brain death testing, we actually disconnect them from the ventilator. And the reason that we do that is we want to see if that autonomic system in the brain will start to react as the carbon dioxide starts to increase. So our body makes carbon dioxide all the time, and the way we get rid of it is by exhaling. And where we breathe in fresh oxygen, and then we breathe out CO2. And what we do is we disconnect from the ventilator to see if, knowing that their carbon dioxide will start to rise, and the normal response for that autonomic part of the brain would be to sort of increase breathing. That's why we breathe when we sleep, because as we go to sleep, the conscious part of our brain stops, but the autonomic part kicks in, and then we breathe right through our sleep because that carbon dioxide rises.
So in a patient who has brain death, would it be accurate to state that as the carbon dioxide level increases, the automatic response would be to take a breath to get more oxygen, but a patient who's brain dead won't do that?
That's correct.
And did you do all of these tests, or did the neurologist do all these tests on Callan while you observed?
Yes, they did, yeah.
And did he have any response to any of the physical tests where you were looking for a reflex or a reaction?
No, he did not. No response to any.
And what was his reaction or results on the apnea test?
So the apnea test, again, we do all the brain testing one day, and then we wait at least 24 hours for the second one. The first, and what we expect with the carbon dioxide is that it will increase. We have it written in our, so it's all in writing for our protocol, that it will increase by 20 or get to a level of 60. A normal CO2 would be around 40. And the first time we did that, on the first day, it actually went to 59.7, not 60. And again, it was in our protocol as it has to get to 60 or increase by 20. And I actually talked to my colleagues, including neurology. I said, I know this is very close. It's 59.7, but it's not 60. I repeated that piece of the test later on that day to make sure that it was valid. And as I say, I checked with everyone to make sure that I was doing the right thing. They all agreed that we should just, and the second time it went to 87. So that was, everything else was the same. And we made sure that there's things that we look at too to make sure that there's not on any medications, that there's no changes in his temperature, there's no abnormalities of the salts in the blood, what we call the electrolytes. So all those conditions were the exact same. And I repeated that later on in the day, and it did come back positive.
Why is it so important that you meet that specific criteria? Why is 0.3 of a point so important?
Well, I wanted to make sure that there was no question about the data that we were gathering at the time.
And you said that this testing is again repeated 24 hours later, correct?
Yes, it is.
Why is that?
Well, that's just to make sure that if there were any lingering effects of medications, if there was anything that else might have changed in the patient's level of alertness or level of response, to make sure that it still meets all those requirements 24 hours later.
And is it because you want to be sure that there's brain death before you remove life support?
Yes, and again, it's too important. It's too important a discussion and a gathering of data to not be very exact about it.
And so when you did observe the testing and the following day on Callan, were the results the same in terms of no reaction and the carbon dioxide increasing?
Yes, they were.
And at that point in time, did he meet brain death criteria?
He did. He met. So we had determined that it was that he had met death by neurologic criteria.
And at that point in time, was a decision made to stop life support?
Yes, it was.
And that's done in consultation with the family, his father, correct?
Yes, that's true.
Okay. And was life support ended for Callan Clancy on January 27th, 2023?
It was, and one of the things is there's when you determine that someone has met criteria for neurologic brain death, that although we know that their brain is not functioning at that point, there's often a period of time where we don't have to his heart is still beating, so we don't have to remove the endotracheal tube at that time, and we often will give families, once it's been confirmed that the brain is no longer functioning, we often give families a period of time to able to process it, and a window of time. Sometimes there's relatives who will need to travel and things like that, and so we'll often then choose a time later on to accommodate the rest of life, knowing that they're stable at the time, to when we would actually remove the tube, and that would be the declaration of death.
And was that done in this case? Family was given an opportunity to see him, and then life support was ended, and then his heart stopped?
Yes, that's
And
exactly.
he was declared deceased?
Yes.
Thank you.
Attorney Reddington? Thank you, sir. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
Your Honor, at this time, the Commonwealth would move to admit the Boston Children's Hospital records for Callan Clancy into evidence. There's 2 volumes.
Objection?
Your Honor, I have no objection because we both have the records. We both want them in evidence, so I have no objection to any of the records that they have. We signed releases for them, for like Beth Israel, Brigham and Women's, South Shore. They all can go in.
That's a yes.
It may be admitted.
Exhibit 137.
Yeah, 128A and B, yeah.
37A and B.
All right, thank you.
Commonwealth would call Kelly McDonald.